Hey guys, tonight we slip into a world of silk sleeves, moonlit pavilions, and powdered faces so pale they could glow in the dark. You're not in a spa, you're in ancient China, where the pursuit of beauty isn't just a preference, it's a full-time occupation, and sometimes a perilous gamble. The scent of lotus blossoms fills the air, but underneath that fragrance lies a paste of ground bone, exotic roots, and, more than a little wishful thinking, you're about to smear things on your skin that sparkle like treasure and cost more than most people's homes, only to discover they might just shorten your life. You sit cross-legged on a lacquered stool, face tilted upward, a handmaid dabbing something cool and faintly metallic onto your cheekbones. It smells faintly of seawater. The box it came from is carved jade, lined in silk, and contains your most prized possession, crushed pearl powder, not for jewelry, not for medicine, for your face. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, post your location and local time. I love seeing where in the world you're drifting off from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The pearl powder glimmers like snow in candlelight. You've mixed it with a dab of camellia oil, beaten it into a paste, and now you're spreading it on your cheeks with a fan-shaped brush. It's cool, silky, a little gritty. Your skin drinks it in like it's been craving treasure. You believe it will lighten your complexion, shrink your pores, and perhaps, just perhaps, make you live longer. After all, pearls are the hardened tears of the ocean. If that doesn't hold power, what does? This beauty ritual isn't reserved for palace women. Across the dynasties, from Han to Tang to Qing, wealthy women guard their pearl boxes with obsession. You can't just go around being luminous without sacrifice, and you, sitting in front of your bronze mirror, are very willing to sacrifice. It's not just crushed nacre. Some recipes mix pearl powder with deer horn, amber resin, or even mica flakes. Others recommend soaking the pearls in vinegar before grinding, because nothing says youthful glow like a touch of acidic burn. The logic? Pearls are associated with the moon, with yin energy, with purity and stillness. Applying them to your face is a symbolic act as much as a cosmetic one. You're not just covering blemishes, you're becoming ethereal, unreachable, the kind of beauty men write poems about and never quite recover from. But here's where it gets tricky. You've also been told, whispered late at night by your grandmother, that taking pearl powder internally will make you ageless. Some say it strengthens the heart. Others claim it calms the soul. A few even say it improves fertility. So naturally, you swallow a small pinch with warm water each morning. After all, the emperor's concubines are rumored to have done it, and they were very much in competition. Historians still argue whether ingesting pearl powder ever did anything other than enrich apothecaries and give women very expensive stomach aches. But that hasn't stopped you. You've paid your cousin's husband, a tax collector with a sideline in imported minerals, to fetch the finest pearls from the southern coast. He doesn't ask why you need them crushed. And let's be honest, it's not just beauty. There's something else you're chasing here. Immortality. Taoist, alchemists, yes, real ones, believed certain substances could extend life, preserve the body, or even grant transcendence. Pearls, being rare, luminous, and immune to decay, became part of that conversation. You might not be aiming for godhood, but if your skin could stop time just a little, you'll take it. So now, it's part of your routine. Morning, scrape tongue, sip tea, swallow pearls. Evening, rinse with jasmine water, apply pearl paste, sleep like an empress. Of course, you'll never know if it's actually working. The bronze mirror lies, your maids flatter you, and your rivals spread rumors behind their fans. But you feel the difference. When sunlight hits your cheek, and someone gasps, ever so slightly, yes, that's confirmation. What they don't see is the side effect. Your tongue sometimes feels metallic. You get these odd dreams, floating, spinning, sinking into oceans with silver waves. You've stopped telling people about them, and you're not entirely sure whether the nausea that sometimes strikes midday is from the pearl powder or the snake bile you tried last week. We'll get to that later. Still, you'd rather risk it than fall behind. Beauty isn't a luxury here. It's a weapon, a currency, a trap, sometimes, but one you're more than willing to walk into in silk shoes and a powdered nose. Fun fact, one Qing dynasty empress, Dowager Cixi, was so obsessed with pearl powder that she ordered crates of it delivered to her chambers regularly. She took it in her tea, her soups, her cosmetics. Some claim her skin remained youthful into her 60s. Others say she just had excellent lighting and ruthless control over who was allowed to look at her up close. And that's the thing. Even the truth about beauty in ancient China is hard to see clearly. So much is ritual, so much is performance, and so much, like the pearl powder melting on your skin right now, disappears the moment it's exposed to the light. Tomorrow, you'll try a new blend. Maybe add crushed chrysanthemum, or a splash of alcohol steeped with powdered rhinoceros horn. Very illegal now, thankfully. Tonight, though, your cheeks shine like a moonlit lake, and you feel, briefly, immortal. Just don't smile too hard. The powder cracks when you do. You wake with a faint ache behind your eyes. Maybe it's the pearl powder from last night. Maybe it's the fact that your pillow is stiff as a roof tile. You stretch, yawn quietly, because ladies don't open their mouths wide, and reach for your morning face cloth. It's soaked in chrysanthemum water, cool and slightly bitter smelling. You pat, not rub. No friction allowed. Friction is the enemy of beauty. Next comes the cream. Well, cream is generous. It's a chalky paste made from something your maid delicately calls white lead. You know it's toxic. Everyone knows it's toxic. That's part of the fun. Because in ancient China, white skin is everything. Not just fair. White, like bone, like rice, like the moon when it's high and full and watching your every move. Pale skin means you don't work in the fields. Don't sweat. Don't burn. Pale skin is rich, delicate, pure. And you? You want to look like a porcelain figurine come to life? So you dip your fingers into the tiny bronze jar. The paste is heavy, almost gluey, smells like vinegar and death. Your handmaid winces as she applies it to your forehead in tiny circular motions. She's seen this go wrong. Last summer, one of the concubines in the West Wing developed boils. Another lost her eyebrows. But they kept applying it, day after day, because their skin shone, like ice under sunlight. And so will yours. The recipe for this ghostly base makeup varies by dynasty and by region. Some use powdered mica. Others mix lead carbonate with egg whites or crushed seashells. If you're lucky and careful, you'll just get a minor rash. If you're unlucky, well, historians still argue whether some early deaths in court were from court intrigue or cumulative makeup poisoning. Your face is now radiant, white as a jade disc, flat, smooth, with no hint of human color. You look half dead, which means you're halfway to ideal, but that's not enough. You draw a faint pink crescent on each cheekbone, using a brush dipped in safflower juice. The color is barely there, like a blush from a dream. The fashion this season is subtlety. During Tang times, women went bolder, rouge in plum, coral, even brick red. Now, under song restraint, less is more. Beauty becomes ghostlier, more poetic. You try not to breathe as your maid paints. Then comes the forehead decoration. Today, a tiny red flower. Tomorrow, perhaps a golden crescent. These, Hua Dian are symbols of love, joy, fertility. They're also part superstition, part fashion statement. A flick of paint between your brows can change how someone reads your face, and that's the point, isn't it? To be read, admired, feared, maybe, desired, always. No one's falling in love with your personality in this palace. They're falling for a vision, a porcelain mask that hides your headaches, your hunger, your boredom, even your rage. One time, you tried going without the lead bass, just once. The look your chamberlain gave you, half confusion, half repulsion, was enough. You vowed never again. He called it a country girl glow, which sounds charming until you remember country girl is code for peasant, and peasant is code for irrelevant. And of course, Dao, men don't wear this stuff. Not usually, unless they're actors, or eunuchs assigned to emulate femininity during certain rituals. But there are rumors, especially in the late Ming era, that some scholars experimented with skin-lightening powders. Vanity knows no gender, nor does foolishness. The irony? You barely see the sun. You walk under silk parasols, bathe in candlelight, sit in gardens after dark. All this effort to make your skin paler, when the sun rarely even touches it. Still, the lead keeps calling. There's a little dish on your vanity with leftover powder from last week. It's oxidized now, turned slightly darker at the edges. You scrape it out anyway. Waste not, want not. The irony of poisoning yourself to look healthier does not escape you, but beauty has never been logical. It's performative, political, occasionally lethal. Modern dermatologists, if they could time travel, would scream. Lead carbonate penetrates the skin, accumulates in the body, damages the kidneys, the nervous system. But you're not a scientist. You're a concubine, or a lady-in-waiting, or a merchant's ambitious daughter trying to marry up. You don't have time for modern warnings. You have cheekbones to define. Fun fact, during the Tang Dynasty, some court women used a 5-layer method. First, a base of white powder, then rouge, then a layer of paste to seal it in, followed by a dusting of pearl, and topped with scented oil to give the illusion of dew. That's not skincare. That's architecture. Historians still argue whether the white face ideal came entirely from Confucian values, purity, modesty, restraint, or if it was imported partially from Central Asian court culture, where skin-lightening rituals also existed. Either way, it stuck. And you're stuck with it. Even now you can feel your pores tightening. Not from some magical anti-aging effect. From dehydration. The lead draws moisture out of your skin like the desert does from travelers. You smile, and the mask cracks faintly at the corner of your lips. You dab more paste. You can't afford to lose face. Literally. A eunuch appears at your door. The afternoon banquet is moved up. The emperor might be there. You blink once, twice. You're ready. Your complexion might be a death sentence, but at least it's a flattering one. You glide through the corridor like a pale ghost, silent, glowing. As you pass the jade column in the main hall, you catch your reflection. You look perfect, alien, fragile, a work of art. And every work of art has a shelf life. You sit cross-legged on a cushion the color of faded plum, staring into the mirror as your maid brandishes the world's tiniest brush. She dips it into black pigment made from pine soot and ox glue, then carefully tilts your chin upward. Today's task is the same as yesterday's, and the day before, your eyebrows. Only they won't look the same, because in ancient China, eyebrows are never just eyebrows. They're seasonal, political, poetic, and deeply judgmental. You don't merely shape them, you declare something with them. And you're still deciding which dynasty your face belongs to. Right now, you're trying out willow leaf brows, thin, long, and arched softly like the fronds hanging by the palace pond. It's the safest choice. Elegant, feminine, proper. But part of you misses last month's experiment. Moth antenna brows, popular during the Tang dynasty. Two soft, curved strokes, flaring up at the ends like a surprised insect. A little wild, a little dangerous. But last week, a court minister walked by and said, too casually, that moth brows made women look flighty. So here you are, back to trees. Across the centuries, brow shapes evolve like fashion viruses. In the Han Dynasty, you might have drawn thick, distant mountain brows, flat and full, meant to resemble misty peaks. During Tang times, anything goes. Dragonfly brows, goose feather brows, even sad cloud brows, arched and trailing down like teardrops in ink. Women would shave off their real eyebrows entirely and redraw them higher, longer, more dramatic. An act of erasure, followed by reinvention. Very on brand for beauty standards. You've done the same. Your natural brows were deemed too short, too straight, too village. So now, every morning, they vanish. And every morning, you redraw them to suit the mood of the court. Fun fact, in some dynasties, there were actual eyebrow catalogs, manuals with illustrations of different shapes and the meanings behind them. You don't choose your brows lightly. They carry symbolism, loyalty, obedience, flirtation, even rebellion. Your face is a canvas, and your eyebrows are the boldest brushstrokes. Historians still argue whether these style shifts were driven by women's preferences, or if they simply reflected changing political climates. One thing is clear: no matter the era, your eyebrows are never entirely yours. Your maid leans closer, holding her breath, correcting a left arch that looks slightly too hopeful. You can't afford hopeful brows today. The Empress is still recovering from that poem someone slipped under her pillow, something about a pair of wings, too wild for cages. And while no one said your name, they're watching Cha. They're watching a dorme. It doesn't help that eyebrow ink is fickle. Today's mixture was made fresh this morning, burnt pine soot mixed with egg white and a dash of musk for scent. It's smooth but dries fast. Your skin is dry from last night's lead powder, so the brush drags if you flinch. You don't flinch. You remember once, long ago, your aunt told you a story. A noblewoman so obsessed with her brows that she made her chambermaid sketch 50 variations for her to pick from each week. She was famous, also exiled, But that part rarely gets mentioned when the story is passed around. As you sit there, motionless, the weight of your eyebrows grows heavier than the brush. It's not just the paint, it's the precision, the expectation, the silent competition. At court, everyone notices brows. Men write poetry about them. Artists immortalize them. Even eunuchs gossip about whose arches dip too much or too little. A single misplaced tail can imply arrogance, sadness, instability. And when your status is as fragile as rice paper in the rain, your brows might just betray you. There was a rumor, not long ago, that the favorite consort had secretly adopted sword brows, sharp, dark lines angled inward like drawn blades. The style was popular among female warriors and legends. She denied it, of course, swore it was just poor lighting, but no one forgets. Today, you don't risk it. Willow leaf it is, and yet, as your maid smooths a final flick across your temple, you can't help but wonder what your face might look like with nothing painted at all, with your real brows, your real skin. But that's a dangerous thought, a foolish one. You push it away. Instead, you lean forward, examining the final result, symmetrical, understated, compliant, perfect. You rise, thank your maid, and begin the rest of your day's preparations. As you walk through the courtyard toward the herbalist's hall, the sun catches your cheek. You don't smile. Smiling wrinkles the eyes, shifts the brows. You maintain serenity. Your brows remain still, sculpted, immovable. Your steps are light, but inside, you're already calculating tomorrow's look. The emperor mentioned chrysanthemums last night. Perhaps chrysanthemum petal brows, gently layered, soft, fragile. You'll sleep on it, or maybe not. Sleep wrinkles the brow too, and so you drift on, a walking painting, inked and powdered and composed, a face that speaks before your lips do, a message in 2 black strokes, not bad, considering it's just a pair of lines. The hair comes first, always, before the powders, before the robes, before the careful calculations of who will be in which corridor at what hour. You sit, patient and blank-eyed, as your maid begins the long daily ritual of taming your hair. It's long. Of course it is. A woman's virtue is often measured by the length and sheen of her locks. Yours trail to your thighs when unbound, heavy as a winter cloak when wet. The oil is warm today, infused with sesame and a few drops of camellia. She rubs it between her palms before smoothing it across your scalp with slow, practiced fingers. You close your eyes. It's the only part of the day that feels like a blessing. In ancient China, hair isn't just hair, it's ancestry, obedience, a living testament to your family's honor. Confucian teachings say your body, hair included, comes from your parents and should not be altered. That's why cutting it is unthinkable. You'd sooner cut your own name off a scroll. Instead, you preserve it, daily oiling, nightly braiding, careful combing with bone-tooth combs so finely carved they'd make a jade artisan jealous. You don't rush. Rushing causes breakage. Breakage causes shame. Once your hair is smooth and slick, the shaping begins. Today is a high bun, secured with a golden hairpin shaped like a phoenix with outstretched wings. Regal, modest, and practical, it holds the weight. In the Tang dynasty, you might have gone grander, towering styles, ornate coils, and buns the size of small animals. Back then, your headpiece said everything about your status. The bigger the hair, the closer to divine. But today's court favors elegance, precision, subtle opulence. Your maid uses bone pins, tortoiseshell combs, and a touch of soot to darken any flyaways. She trims nothing. Instead, stray hairs are tucked with the reverence of calligraphy strokes. Then comes the scent. A sachet of pine needles, sandalwood, and dried plum blossom is waved lightly through your tresses. Not for you, for anyone walking behind you. Court corridors are full of silent competitions, and your fragrance is your herald. No one should forget your presence just because your lips haven't moved. And speaking of lips, yours are still bare. You'll fix that after the hair. You run your hands across the sleek strands. Cool, fragrant, heavy, like a velvet curtain spun from midnight. You imagine the Empress's stylist doing the same thing at this very moment, 3 corridors away, except with more help and more jade hairpins. You envy her nothing, except maybe the crown of peacock feathers she wears for major ceremonies. Fun fact, some women in ancient China believed that rubbing the scalp with ox marrow or even boiled black beans could enhance hair growth. A few took things further, washing their hair in rice water or steeped tea leaves. There's even a tale of a concubine who bathed her hair in rainwater, collected only from the first storm of spring. Did it work? Historians still argue whether these recipes were based in medicine, myth, or just elaborate self-care routines. What isn't debated is the symbolism. A woman's hair is a mirror of her self-discipline. Tangled hair means a tangled soul. Glossy hair is harmonious. And your hair, it has to say, this woman is flawless, calm, controlled, beautiful enough to ruin someone's political future. Once your bun is sculpted, your maid wraps a narrow silk ribbon around its base. It's red today, deep crimson, the color of luck, fertility, and also low-key danger. You're not technically allowed to wear red unless you're summoned, but maybe today's the day he notices. The phoenix pin goes in last. It's not just decoration, it's weaponry, sharp enough to pierce silk or skin. There's a rumor about a concubine in the Ming court who used hers to stab a rival's hand at a tea banquet. Nothing was proven, of course, but afterward, pin inspections became stricter. You glance into the mirror again. The effect is complete. You look taller, calmer, wealthier, all from the head up. Everything else is just stage dressing. Of course, you've also heard whispers, old legends from backwater villages, of women who shaved their heads in rebellion. One tale speaks of a widow who shaved her hair to escape remarriage, claiming the gods demanded it. Another tells of a courtesan who sold her hair to ransom her brother from jail. Their stories don't end well. Hair, you see, is identity. To remove it is to erase yourself, but to shape it, to tame it into elegance, that is power, and you know that well. As your maid steps back, admiring her own handiwork, you tilt your head ever so slightly. The bun holds. The scent trails like incense. You're ready. But you wonder, how much of your power lies in the strands of hair twisted above your neck? And if someone were to cut them in your sleep, would you wake up still yourself? It's a passing thought. You shake it off, careful not to loosen the coil, because you have other things to worry about, like whether your face will match the perfection of your crown, and whether the woman behind the next silk screen smells of sandalwood or ambition. The first time they lacquered your teeth black, you gagged, not from the taste, though the stuff did taste like burnt wood soaked in vinegar, but from the idea, you, who had spent your childhood brushing with salt and crushed lotus root for whiter teeth, were now voluntarily painting them the color of soot, and not just once. This would be your new reality. Daily applications, meticulous upkeep, a mouthful of shadows. Welcome to the world of ancient Chinese beauty, where jet black teeth mean you're loyal, modest, and definitely not seducing anyone with a flashy grin. You sit in the corner of the room now, wrapped in a pale blue robe, with your lips peeled slightly apart as your maid applies a second coat. The lacquer is warm from sitting in the sun and smells faintly of cloves and iron. It stains quickly. One wrong move and your gums will look bruised for days. You stare at the ceiling beams and try not to think about the irony. Your face must be white as moonlight, your teeth dark as night, a porcelain doll with an inkstone smile. This practice, known in some regions as ohaguro, wasn't just a Japanese custom. It found followers in parts of China too, especially among court women in southern dynasties, frontier provinces, and areas influenced by regional beliefs about virtue and mourning. In certain eras, blackened teeth were not only fashionable, they were expected after marriage. Why? Because bright white teeth were considered seductive, animalistic, even. Black teeth meant you'd transcended that. You weren't some wild girl grinning in a tea house. You were refined, loyal, proper, desirable in the correct, morally upright sort of way. It's supposed to be a rite of passage. You're supposed to feel proud. Instead, your tongue tastes like metal, and you worry every time you smile that someone will flinch. Your cousin refused to do it. She said it made her look dead. She laughed too much to carry it off anyway. Her fate? Married off to a minor official in a province so far away, it may as well be another planet. She still sends letters, sometimes, still with white teeth, presumably. You chose the other path. The serious one. The one that lets you sit here, within whispering distance of palace power. Your lacquer is made from iron filings boiled with vinegar and tea, sometimes with additions like oak galls or even dried plum skins for scent. It stains enamel within minutes, and after repeated use, becomes nearly permanent. It also, interestingly, protects against cavities. The iron forms a film that's surprisingly good at blocking bacteria. So yes, your teeth may look dead, but they're healthier than ever. Historians still argue whether this practice was truly widespread in elite Han Chinese courts, or more of a peripheral trend. But you're living proof that in this particular palace, at this particular time, black teeth are beautiful, or at least, expected. You lower the hand mirror and examine your reflection. Your lips are a soft peony pink today, your skin luminous with a new pearl lead blend. And inside, that perfect oval of a face, 2 rows of polished obsidian. You look expensive and a little haunted. You know what they'll say behind the fans at the banquet. She must be deeply faithful. Look at her mouth, sealed like a secret. They won't say you miss apples, that you haven't smiled freely in weeks, that you had a nightmare last night about your teeth falling out and shattering like porcelain. You dab your lips with jasmine oil and rinse your mouth gently with warm water infused with mint. The taste still lingers. Fun fact, some ancient texts suggest that blackening teeth was also a way to show mourning, a sign of inner grief made visible. One woman supposedly blackened her teeth permanently after her fiancé died in battle, as a vow to never remarry. Her story was passed down as a legend of devotion, and as a cautionary tale about what happens when you fall in love with soldiers. Your lacquer is drying now. You know better than to press your lips together too early. It'll smudge, and you'll have to start over. So you sit still, breathe softly, wait. There's a knock at the door. A eunuch announces that a poetry recital has been added to the evening's gathering. You're expected. You nod. You'll be ready. You're always ready. But still, in the moment before you rise, you look again at your reflection, and for the briefest second, you allow yourself a grimace, not a smile, something else, something between resignation and theater, because that's what this is, isn't it? Theater, a performance in pale skin and dark teeth, in painted brows and sculpted buns, and your role, tonight and always, is to be admired, but never too much, approachable, but not too close, alive, but only in the most tasteful shades. Your maid helps you up. You walk slowly, trying not to let the lacquer crack. You pass the window, where sunlight streaks through wooden lattice and lands on your face. Your skin glows, your lips glisten, your teeth do not reflect light. You are, by every standard of the court, breathtaking. And yet, as you glide down the hallway toward your next performance, you wonder, who decided beauty meant painting the smile out of your mouth? You don't remember the first time your feet were bound, not clearly. You were 6, maybe 7, too young to understand why your mother's eyes looked so tired when she brought out the white cloth strips, too young to question why your grandmother was already heating water and muttering blessings under her breath. All you knew was that the room smelled of camphor and something sour, and everyone kept calling it a necessary step. That first day, they softened your feet with warm water and herbs, soothing at first. Then they bent your toes under, one by one, except for the big toe, which stayed upright like a stubborn reed. The pain was immediate and all-consuming, but you didn't scream. You knew better. Good girls don't scream. They wrapped the cloth tight, pulling until the arch bowed like a crescent moon. It was tradition. It was honor. It was your only real path to marriage in this society, unless you fancied becoming a nun, and those didn't wear silk. Now, years later, you're used to the pain, sort of. Your bound feet, barely 4 inches long, are tucked beneath layers of embroidered slippers, red silk with golden plum blossoms, because today is a formal day. You no longer walk, you glide, or at least that's what it looks like. Each step is a shuffle, knees slightly bent, hips swaying for balance. The posture is praised as elegant, feminine, graceful. Never mind the blisters beneath, or the fact that the bones in your feet never quite healed right. Foot binding, or lotus feet as they're romantically called, was practiced for centuries in China, particularly among Han Chinese families. It likely began in the 10th century, with stories of a concubine who danced on toes wrapped like new moon crescents. The practice spread fast, becoming a symbol of wealth, status, and discipline. A woman with bound feet couldn't work in the fields. She was pampered, confined, precious. You've been many things in this life, but never pampered. This morning, before anyone else awoke, your maid helped you rebind. You do it daily. The cloth must be tight. You peel off the previous day's layers, soak through with sweat, sometimes blood. You wipe down your feet with rose water, sprinkle on alum powder to reduce odor, then begin again. Strip by strip, your foot is forced back into the shape of a petal, a shape it never naturally had. There are days when you hate the sight of them. Your toes are curled under so tightly They resemble a cluster of stones. Your nails have long since disappeared, dissolved by friction and neglect. You can't run. You can barely stand more than an hour without trembling. But when the wind lifts your long gown and someone glimpses the curve of your embroidered slipper, they gasp. And that gasp is everything. You've trained for it, suffered for it, achieved it. Historians still argue why foot binding endured so long. Some say it was male desire, a fetishization of the small, delicate, and helpless. Others point to women's own participation in upholding the tradition, mothers binding daughters, grandmothers offering praise for perfect folds, aunts inspecting toes like quality control clerks. Power, after all, doesn't only come from the top. Sometimes it's passed hand to hand like cloth. You don't know who to blame. What you do know is that you've gained power in your limitation. When you sit in the garden pavilion, delicately pouring tea, people notice. You are soft-spoken, slow-moving, ethereal. You float from scene to scene like a spirit. It's a performance, of course, but one that earns respect, and maybe even fear. Fun fact, in some regions, there were manuals that taught how to walk beautifully with bound feet, how to lean just enough on each step, how to make the gait look seductive without revealing the pain. The Golden Lotus Gait, they called it. You studied it, perfected it, at great cost. But behind closed doors, you collapse. At night, you sleep with your feet elevated, cradled by silk pillows. You massage the soles with hot cloths. Sometimes, when the palace is quiet, you whisper to your feet, apologies, prayers, threats. You're not sure anymore. Once, you tried walking without the bindings, just for a few minutes. The pain was so sharp you nearly fainted. Your bones, long broken and reshaped, didn't know how to carry your weight anymore. You sat down and cried, not because of the pain, but because you realized there was no going back. Still, the slippers are beautiful. Your favorite pair is embroidered with golden cranes. You wear them on festival days. You've even started learning how to sew your own. A tiny act of control in a world that binds you, literally and metaphorically. And today, as you shuffle across the courtyard to the tea hall, you catch the eye of a younger girl. She stares at your feet with fascination. Maybe horror. You don't know which, but you recognize the look. She'll be next. And you'll be the one holding the cloth, because beauty, in your world, is not a choice. It's a legacy. You press the cold jade to your cheek and breathe out slowly, not because you're relaxed, but because you have to relax. That's rule number 1 of gua sha. Never tense your muscles. The scraping tool must glide, gently, firmly, brutally. Your skin flushes immediately, a bright red trail appearing beneath the smooth stroke of the oxhorn blade. It looks like a rash, feels like a warning. You wince, but only slightly. After all, beauty isn't always gentle. This is your daily facial scraping ritual. Part massage, part medical procedure, part spiritual cleansing. In theory, it's for your health. In reality, it's also for your looks. A lifted jawline, smoothed wrinkles, brighter skin, all promised and guaranteed. But you do it anyway, because the Empress swears by it, and her face looks suspiciously like it's never frowned. Jade rollers come next, cool, polished, and beautifully green. You roll them across your temples, your brow, down the neck, and around your eyes. The jade never warms up. It stays like moonlight against your skin, soothing the places where the scraping left angry streaks. You were skeptical the first time. So were most palace women, but now everyone does it. Gua sha and jade rolling are in vogue. Some say they move stagnant chi. Others say they drain bad blood. You just like the way your cheeks look afterward, lifted, flushed, and just a little tragic. The tools vary. Yours are ox horn and nephrite. The Empress has one carved from rhinoceros horn. Illegal now, thankfully. The cheaper ones are made of rose quartz or agate. All are supposed to balance your internal energies, or maybe just your appearance. Fun fact, the earliest records of gua sha date back to the Han Dynasty, where it was primarily a healing technique used to treat fever and inflammation. It wasn't originally cosmetic at all. Peasants would scrape their backs with coins or ceramic spoons to release wind. Eventually, the practice moved upward into the beauty arsenals of noble women and, inevitably, into your morning routine. Your handmaid is getting good at it. She's learned how to angle the blade just right, following the natural lines of your jaw, coaxing out tension with the finesse of a calligrapher. Still, you keep a mirror nearby. You don't trust anyone completely when your face is at stake. You've also tried cupping, but only on your back. The purple bruises are hard to hide under court robes, and someone once mistook them for abuse. That was a long week. So now, it's scraping and rolling, with a hint of facial slapping on alternate Thursdays. Historians still argue whether these tools genuinely improved circulation and lymphatic drainage, or simply bruised women into feeling like they were doing something. Some believe the redness, the swelling, even the pain was the point. It meant you were cleansing, even if you were just damaging your capillaries. Others argue there was real benefit, improved blood flow, decreased puffiness, maybe even a sharper cheekbone or two. You don't care either way, because it works, or feels like it works. And that's enough. Your skin, moments ago pale and flat from pearl powder, now pulses with color. You dab the red marks with cooling herbal gel, made from chrysanthemum and camphor, and marvel at the contrast. Alive, awake, almost fevered. There's something seductive about it, even though no one's supposed to see you like this. Raw, flushed, exposed. You quickly cover the window with a silk screen and tilt your mirror. You remember once hearing a story about a concubine who scraped so hard her jaw bruised for 3 days. She claimed it was because the emperor liked the color. Others say she was trying to reshape her face. Either way, she vanished a month later. Rumors say she was sent to a temple. Others say she simply became unfashionable in the palace. Unfashionable is worse than forgotten. So, you scrape every morning, every night, every time your reflection starts to look too still. You chase blood flow like it's the elixir of life. You've even begun experimenting with new tools, one made of black obsidian, another shaped like a fish. Your favorite is a crescent blade carved from buffalo horn, smooth as silk, sharp enough to make you nervous. You're careful, though. You've read the warnings. Never scrape downward. Always follow the key lines. Never do it on an empty stomach. And above all, never draw blood. That crosses the line from beauty to desperation. You haven't crossed that line. Not yet. But there are nights, quiet ones, when the moon is high and you're alone with your thoughts, when you wonder what your face would look like without the swelling, without the pressure, without the bruises hidden under powder and the jade rollers cooling your skin after every scrape? Would it still be beautiful, or has your face become beautiful because of the pain? Tonight, as you glide the jade roller under your eyes, you exhale slowly. The fan hums in the background. Somewhere in the distance, a zither plays. You feel the day draining from your face, lines easing, tension fading. You look in the mirror and see someone almost peaceful, and then, because you're still awake and still ambitious, you pick up the scraper again, just one more pass, for balance. You haven't taken a full body bath in over a week, and no one seems to care, because here in the palace, smelling nice isn't about soap and water, it's about illusion. Layers of silk, pouches of crushed petals, spritzes of fermented citrus on the wrist. You're not washing, you're masking, and you're very, very good at it. This morning, like every morning, your maid lifts your sleeve and slides in a fresh scent sachet, a tiny embroidered pouch filled with dry jasmine, sandalwood, orange, peel, and a few mysterious ingredients you're pretty sure came from a deer's innards. You don't ask, you just breathe it in. The result? When you walk, you trail fragrance like a comet's tail. When you bow, the sleeves release a cloud of perfume. You smell like a garden in spring, even though the most water that's touched your skin this week is a damp cloth behind the ears. Bathing in ancient China, especially for women in the inner court, is more ritual than hygiene. Yes, you occasionally soak in herbal baths, especially during festivals or after illness, but daily washing, scrubbing your body like a laborer, that's not elegant. That's suspicious. Instead, you dust your body with scented powders, camphor, talc, and crushed magnolia. You dab your wrists and neck with infused oils. You even carry emergency sachets in your sleeve hems, in case someone leans in too close and smells reality. Fun fact, the Chinese character for fragrance, jiang, was historically associated with not just flowers, but women themselves. A refined woman was expected to smell refined, like plum blossoms in snow, or the breath of warm tea. In some love poems, her scent is mentioned more than her eyes. You lean over your vanity and pick up today's special, ambergris tincture, aged in porcelain for 10 years, and worth more than your cousin's dowry. You dab a tiny drop on your comb and run it through your hair. Now your head smells like mythical sea foam and poetry. Your armpits, however, are where the real magic happens, because no amount of elegance can mask a summer afternoon in layered silk. So you turn to an age-old secret, armpit sachets, tied with ribbons, nestled just beneath the arms. They soak up sweat and release fragrance with every movement. Some women even pin sachets under the bust line, especially before dances or ceremonies. It's like walking around inside a mobile flower shop. Today's blend includes vetiver, crushed citrus rind, and something your maid calls phoenix bark. You suspect she made that up, but it smells divine, so you let it slide. Historians still argue whether these scent rituals were purely cosmetic, or if they carried medicinal or spiritual significance. Some argue that scent was tied to balance in the 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, water, and that choosing the right fragrance could align your inner energy. Others think it was just ancient deodorant. Either way, you're not risking it. Especially not after what happened to Lady Yulin last month. She fainted during a poetry recital, heat stroke probably, and when the eunuchs carried her away, Someone whispered that she smelled like turnips. Her social life has never recovered, so you layer. You brush scented powder between your toes, sprinkle perfume into your inner garments, chew a clove to keep your breath sweet. Even your inkstone has been perfumed with dried osmanthus, so your poetry will carry subtle floral notes. You may not bathe, but you are very clean. It's not just about covering up. It's about transformation. You smell like someone more powerful than you are. When the prince passes you in the courtyard, he slows. Not because of your dress, not because of your face, but because your scent reminds him of his childhood garden, or a woman he once almost loved, or a place he's never been. You don't look at him. You just glide on. At night, before bed, your maid sprinkles your sheets with sleeping powder, a fine mix of lavender, mugwort, and something numbing. You lie there, wrapped in fragrance, wondering what the air will say about you long after you're gone. You've become scent, a memory, a perfume, in motion. And still, sometimes, in the dark, you think about water, the feeling of it, the weight, the clarity. You remember once being caught in the rain as a girl, running barefoot, soaked to the skin, laughing, no perfume, just the smell of earth, of wet hair, of being real. You never told anyone about that day. You just keep tying your sachets, brushing your powders, smiling when someone leans in and sighs. You always smell so pure. And you nod, because they'll never know the truth under all these petals. You tap your face with a soft puff of powder, and it floats in the air like a cloud of snow and secrets. This is your finishing step, lotus powder, supposedly calming, supposedly beautifying, supposedly the final touch to make you look not just pretty, but immortal. But you know better, worker. You know that what's in this jar isn't just lotus petals and crushed rice. There are things here you don't talk about, ingredients that don't belong in polite conversation. You're putting bat feces on your face. Again, your handmaid told you it's not just any bat. It has to be from cave bats, the kind that sleep upside down near sacred springs. They eat only fruit. Their droppings are pure. She swears. You nodded politely while she mixed the powder. You didn't ask questions. You just applied it. Because it worked. It absorbs oil, makes your skin glow under candlelight, and gives you that pale, haunting look everyone's chasing this season. And besides, it's not the worst thing you've put on your face. There was that one time someone handed you a secret recipe passed down from the Tang dynasty. Crushed pearls, yes, but also dried frog skin and a trace amount of cinnabar. You still don't know which part made your cheeks peel for a week. But today, it's the lotus powder mixed with ghost root, crushed rice hulls, and that faint, chalky trace of something no one ever names. The result is eerie, beautiful, terrifying. You look like a ghost from a dream, or a goddess from an ink painting. No texture, no flaws, no signs of sleep or sorrow. Just flat, powdered perfection. And yet, you feel more like a mask than a person. You stare into your bronze mirror, watching the powder settle into the corners of your nose. Your lips are painted a soft red, made from safflower, not blood, though the difference feels thinner each year. Your eyes are lined with a compound made from soot and goose fat. Your lashes are slightly curled. You don't even look tired anymore. That's what scares you most. Historians still argue over whether ancient beauty powders had medicinal purposes or were purely cosmetic. Some claim certain formulas helped calm the skin, absorb heat, even ward off evil spirits. Others insist they were just elaborate ways of layering dirt in a decorative shape. But what's undeniable is the obsession with whiteness. Not just fair skin, white skin, ethereal, unreachable. You're trying to erase all signs of living flesh. And that's exactly what this powder does. There are moments when you look at yourself and feel a chill, not because you're pale, but because you're invisible. Your skin is no longer your own. It's a surface, a performance. And this white haze you wear, it's armor. Fun fact, ghost glam was real. In some literary salons, poets praised women who looked like they were already halfway to the afterlife. The sick beauty trend, pale skin, thin lips, dark eyes, was considered romantic, even spiritual. There's even a painting of a famous courtesan whose face is so pale it blends into the paper. Only her hair and eyes remain visible, like a fading dream. You've chased that You've succeeded. And now you can't stop. The ingredients are always changing. Last month, you added crushed snail shells. This week, someone whispered about using powdered tea leaves to add a greenish glow, which supposedly makes your cheeks look like jade. You tried it once, you looked seasick, but the Empress commented on your ethereal melancholy, so you kept it. That's the real game, isn't it? To look delicate enough to be tragic, but not so tragic that it makes people uncomfortable. Your maid brushes the final dust from your collarbones and hands you a silk scarf. You tie it loosely around your neck, not for modesty, but because it catches stray flecks of powder. The scarf is white, of course. As you walk through the corridor, you pass another woman, a junior concubine, no more than 17. Her face is bare, just a touch of rouge. She looks up at you and startles, not because you're beautiful, but because she doesn't recognize you. And why should she? You hardly recognize yourself. There are days when you forget what your real skin looks like. Its warmth, its texture, its flaws. You dream sometimes of washing it all off, soaking your face in hot water, scrubbing until you see freckles, veins, maybe even a scar or two. But that's fantasy, because tomorrow, before dawn, you'll powder again, and again, and again, until no one remembers what was underneath. Least of all, you. You lie perfectly still, head resting in a silk cradle, as two maids lower the golden face cage over your cheeks. Yes, face cage. It sounds like a torture device, and to be fair, it feels like one too. But here in the palace, it's considered a mark of high self-discipline, a bedtime accessory for the devoted. You wear it not because it's comfortable, but because your beauty must survive the night untouched. The cage is delicate, lattice-like, shaped to the exact curves of your face. Gold-plated brass, padded at the temples, slightly open at the lips. It rests just above the skin, held in place by ribbons tied behind your head. The purpose? To keep you from smushing your face in your sleep, to prevent wrinkles. You aren't even 30. But in this court, the first wrinkle is the beginning of your disappearance. The maids tighten the side clasps, careful not to pull your hair. You inhale through your nose. Shallow breaths only. Too deep. And the cage rattles slightly. Not ideal for rest. Tonight, you'll be sleeping like a mummy, flat on your back, arms neatly folded, surrounded by silk pillows to stop any sudden turns. You can't risk your cheek pressing against the mat. That's how it starts. One night of careless sleep, and by morning your face looks lived in. And that's unacceptable. This isn't a fringe habit. In fact, during the late Qing dynasty, facial preservation cages became popular among noblewomen who could afford custom fittings. Some were made of silver, others of jade, and a few, the terrifying few, incorporated tiny prongs that gently reminded you not to move by poking your jaw. You tried one once, never again. Historians still argue whether these devices were widely used or simply rare palace eccentricities. But scroll illustrations don't lie. Some clearly show women sleeping beneath what appear to be lattice masks or sculpted face screens. Whether for beauty, status, or just superstition, they were real. And they were uncomfortable. But like every ritual in your life, discomfort has become normal. Before the cage, you apply your usual silk mask, a square of raw silk soaked in a mix of white peony root, almond milk, and powdered pearl. It smells faintly of rice and ghosts. You lay it over your face, pressing gently. The mask nourishes the skin, or so you're told, mostly. It just keeps the powder from transferring to your pillow. And what a pillow it is. You sleep on a jade pillow, cool to the touch, carved with floral patterns and curved to cradle your neck. It's supposed to preserve posture, prevent drooping, and align your spirit while you dream. You miss your goose feather pillow from childhood, but that one left creases, and creases mean questions. You remember one morning, waking with a tiny line near your mouth. Your maid noticed. So did a rival concubine. By evening, there was gossip that you were starting to fade. You were 23. Since then, you've never missed a night of facial protection. Fun fact, some court manuals listed up to 70 facial rituals for women of high status, including nightly sleeping postures, breath control, and even dream discipline. Certain dreams were believed to cause stress lines. There's no rest from beauty, not even in sleep. As the room darkens and the candles are snuffed one by one, you feel your muscles begin to ease, not your face, though, that stays perfectly still. You think of the Empress, sleeping just beyond the garden wall. Her face cage is rumored to be platinum, with a silk lining soaked in saffron and deer marrow. She's older than you, but her cheeks are smooth as porcelain. Or at least, no one's brave enough to say otherwise. Do you envy her? Maybe. Or maybe you just envy the idea of sleeping freely. Sometimes, when you close your eyes, you dream of tossing and turning in warm blankets. Your cheek pressed into something soft, your breath deep and unrushed. A dream where your face is in a battlefield, but then you wake up, motionless, as instructed, and thank the stars that you didn't shift in the night. Your skin is still smooth, your reputation intact. You drift towards sleep now, slow and careful. The jade pillow supports your neck. The silk mask holds the moisture. The golden face cage hovers over your skin like a silent guardian. Outside, the wind rustles the bamboo. Inside, you look like a statue, a very well-preserved one. You've heard the rumors, whispers from the kitchen maids, murmurs from junior concubines in the corridor. Empress Wu has a secret, not just political cunning, not just her infamous network of spies and informants. No, this secret lives in a porcelain jar no one is allowed to touch. A cream, a potion, a miracle, maybe naturally. You want it. Because Empress Wu Zetian isn't just powerful, she's ageless. Her skin glows beneath candlelight, like she bathes in the moon. Her cheeks are firm, her eyes bright, her expression unnervingly smooth. And she's well into her 60s. That kind of longevity, in this palace, is both enviable and dangerous. Eventually, you find a source, a retired lady-in-waiting, now blind in one eye and semi-senile, mumbles about it while sipping warm millet wine. She says it's a blend of ginseng, mica, and something that grows only in shadows. When you press her, she whispers a name you recognize from darker alchemical scrolls. Nightshade. You pause. Yes, that nightshade. Toxic. Beautiful. Legal in some formulas. Banned in others. But rumored to have properties that, when prepared just right, can soften the skin, brighten the eyes, and slow the visible march of time. The scrolls describe Empress Wu's mixture in cryptic phrases: stone of stars, root of the tiger, powder that glows under moonlight. You know that means mica, tiny flakes of reflective mineral, ground to a shimmer and mixed into cream. It gives the illusion of radiance. The ginseng adds bounce. The nightshade, well, that part still makes you nervous, but you make it anyway. Your maid helps you grind the ingredients, using a mortar carved from quartz. The result is a soft, shimmering cream with a scent halfway between earth and cold metal. It glides on like oil and dries like frost. You apply it slowly, watching the shimmer trace your cheekbones, your temples, the curve of your jaw. You wait. And nothing. No burning. No numbness. No immediate glow. But later, as the sun sets, someone pauses in the corridor. They tilt their head. You look rested. They say, not young, not radiant, rested, which, in this environment, is equivalent to a standing ovation. Fun fact, Wu Zetian's real beauty regimen remains speculative. Some believe she favored ginseng and angelica, both commonly used in ancient skincare for promoting blood circulation and softening complexion. Others think she experimented with Taoist alchemy, borderline magical practices involving minerals, herbs, and substances modern dermatologists would definitely not recommend. Either way, her image as timeless and luminous was no accident. It was cultivated. And now, you're trying to cultivate it too. You apply the cream nightly. You adjust the formula. Less mica, more ginseng, then less ginseng, more powdered pearl. 1 week. You even try adding a drop of tortoise blood, as suggested by an extremely old text you probably should have burned instead of reading. You're desperate. You're not ashamed. Because in this palace, time is your enemy, beauty means survival, and youth is your only currency. You trade in it daily, at banquets, poetry readings, incense ceremonies. One wrinkle, one faded look, and you're discounted like old silk. Historians still argue whether Empress Wu's beauty was natural, manufactured, or simply exaggerated through imperial propaganda. But the consensus is this: she knew how to control her image. In portraits, she's serene. In poems, she's luminous. In gossip, she's terrifying. And through it all, her skin remains perfect. You model yourself on her. You begin sleeping in colder rooms, because they say chilled air tightens the skin. You drink goji berry tea. You smear your cream not just on your face, but on your neck, your shoulders, the backs of your hands. You forbid yourself from frowning, even when alone. Your mirror becomes your ally and your judge. One day, you pass by it and pause. You do look different. Your skin glows faintly, even in shadow. Your lips look fuller. Your eyes, maybe not younger, but more present. You wonder if the cream is working, or if you've simply become better at holding your face just so. It doesn't matter. It's working. You hear other women whispering. She looks brighter these days. Her skin's like polished jade. You don't smile. That would ruin it. But you do allow yourself a single thought. I might survive this place after all. You press another dab of the cream along your jawline, where the tension hides. You think of Empress Wu, powerful, radiant, feared. You wonder how much of that came from her jar of cream, and how much came from the belief that she deserved to glow. You're not her, but you're not giving up either. You're handed a porcelain bowl at dawn. Steam curls from it like dragon breath, and a faint scent of sugar and something less identifiable floats up to meet your nose. You hesitate. Inside is a delicacy known only to the elite, bird's nest soup. Yes, actual bird nests. Specifically, those made by swiftlets, who build their nests entirely out of strands of hardened saliva, harvested from remote cliff caves by daredevil climbers and sold for prices higher than gold. These nests dissolve into gelatin when boiled, becoming a texture somewhere between jelly and silk thread. And you're supposed to drink this? Of course you are, because Empress Dowagers swear by it. Courtesans whisper about it. The medical texts say it nourishes the lungs, brightens the skin, and restores the balance of inner winds. Whatever that means. You take a sip. It's weirdly sweet, warm, smooth, a little like melted crystal. You tell yourself it's working, but this is just your breakfast beauty potion. Lunch will be snake bile tea, a bitter, greenish brew made from the extracted fluids of a venomous serpent's gallbladder. It's disgusting, but it's supposed to clear the blood, flush the liver, and purge bad humors that could rise to the face as blemishes. You've gagged on it more than once, but you still drink? Because in the palace, your diet is your skincare. There are no facials. There are no laser treatments. Just soups, tonics, elixirs, mystery broths delivered by silent eunuchs who never make eye contact. Today's menu includes pig's trotters stewed with peanuts for collagen, tremella fungus in sweet syrup for glow, boiled donkey hide gelatin for blood, goji berries soaked overnight in rose water for energy and pink cheeks. Your meals are monitored, your portions small. You chew slowly, methodically, calculating which part of you will benefit from each bite. Fun fact: in ancient China, beauty diets were serious science. Books like The Essential Secrets of External and Internal Beauty recommended specific ingredients for skin, hair, eyes, and nails. There were foods to make your lips redder, your pupils brighter, your nails more translucent. Some women even ate powdered coral and fish scales for a shimmering complexion. Historians still argue whether these dietary rituals actually produced results, or if they simply offered women a sense of control in a world where their bodies were constantly under scrutiny. But one thing's certain: you believe in them. Not because you're gullible, but because you have to. You can't afford a bad skin day, a dull gaze, a moment of fatigue. So you consume beauty like a scholar consumes knowledge, relentlessly, hungrily, with an undertone of fear. There's also black sesame paste for hair, red dates for circulation, pine nuts for skin elasticity. You eat quietly, while the other women gossip over their soup. You don't join in. Gossip creates wrinkles. But you do listen. One concubine swears by fresh deer placenta, applied topically. Another claims eating jellyfish helps the skin bounce. A third drinks vinegar mixed with crushed pearls, and her complexion does have that ghostly glow that turns heads in the corridor. You'll try them all eventually. Your favorite? Snow frog fat, harvested from the fallopian tubes of wild frogs in mountain regions. It's rare, expensive, and, according to your handmaid, it makes the skin weep dew. You pretend that doesn't sound horrifying. You mix it into almond milk and sip it with a straight face. Tonight, before bed, you'll sip a different tonic, black chicken broth simmered with ginseng, longan fruit, and a dash of powdered tortoise shell, supposed to anchor the spirit and soften the bones. You're not entirely sure what that means, but your bones do feel oddly tender afterward. Of course, you're not allowed real hunger or cravings. Cravings are indulgent, undisciplined, and nothing ruins a complexion faster than lack of discipline. You haven't eaten something just because you wanted it in years. Sometimes, in your dreams, you bite into a peach, ripe, messy, sweet, and it drips down your chin. You wake up panicked, rushing to the mirror to check for sugar blemishes. There's nothing, just your reflection, pliable, controlled, empty of indulgence. They say you are what you eat, and in this palace, you are. Half swiftlet spit, 1/3 powdered fungus, a sprinkling of pearl, and just enough bile to keep the ambition flowing. You scrape the bottom of the porcelain bowl and wonder what your body would taste like now. Probably like beauty and quiet desperation. You rinse your mouth with mint-infused tea and smile politely. There's snake bile in the next room, and you're thirsty. You press your lips together, just once, gently, then pull away from the mirror to examine the result. It's perfect. A deep, burnished red, like lacquered wood or a sunset caught in ink. The kind of red that legends are written about. The kind of red that gets you in trouble if you're not careful. Because in this dynasty, colors have rules. And the color on your mouth, it's forbidden, unless you've earned it. In ancient China, cosmetics weren't just for beauty. They were rank, regulation, and rebellion all at once. Certain hues, particularly bold reds and rich purples, were reserved for the elite, the imperial family, the empress, maybe a top-ranking concubine on a festival day. But you're somewhere in between, not invisible, but not immune either. And yet, here you are, wearing imperial red. Your rouge is made from powdered safflower petals, steeped in alcohol, then thickened with beeswax to form a paste. It glides on smoothly, staining not just your lips, but, arguably, your fate. The first time you wore it, you were terrified. Now, you do it for the thrill, because nothing makes you feel more alive than walking through a corridor knowing someone might call you out, might accuse you of vanity, or ambition, or daring to look too much like her. You're not alone in this. Other women bend the rules too, just in subtler ways. A slightly deeper pink than allowed, a rogue dusting of crushed cinnabar along the hairline, a hint of forbidden glitter in the corner of the eye. But lips are loud. Your handmaid begs you to wear something safer, plum, maybe, or the popular bitten petal pink, which gives the illusion of modesty. But you know what they all mean. You've read the ancient manuals. Fun fact, in Tang Dynasty texts, lip colors were classified not by shades, but by moods. There was rouge of longing, shade of the pomegranate sigh, and kiss left by a mourning crane. Scholars believed your lip color reflected your inner character, or at least the character you wanted people to think you had. Historians still argue whether these codes were strictly enforced or more of a suggestion wrapped in etiquette. Some sources say women were punished for wearing unauthorized colors. Others suggest enforcement was uneven and class-based. If you were important enough, you could wear anything. If you weren't, well, you'd better hope no one noticed. Today, you're counting on distraction. You've paired your lips with subdued cheeks and modest brows. Hair pulled back simply. Neckline conservative. The rouge is your only rebellion. And yet, it says everything. You dab your lips again, just to deepen the hue. Then blot with silk. A eunuch knocks on the door. You're summoned to attend an afternoon poetry gathering in the Eastern Pavilion. The Empress might be there. You feel your throat tighten slightly, but you don't wipe off the rouge. Instead, you pick up your fan. Your fan is clever, painted with cranes and bamboo, modest enough to avoid suspicion, but wide enough to hide your smile, or your scowl, or your lip color, if the need arises. You've learned to speak through gestures, to tilt your chin just so, to laugh without parting your lips too far, to flutter the fan when someone important looks too closely. It's not just strategy, it's survival. The last woman who wore this exact shade of red, she was promoted, then demoted, then sent to a nunnery. You don't know if it was the rouge or the rumors, but you remember her lips. They look like yours do now. As you step into the corridor, the light from the open lattice windows hits your mouth. You pause, adjust your fan, keep walking. Each step is measured, each turn of your wrist calculated. You wonder, when did a little pigment become a political act? You pass a younger concubine who stares at your face with open curiosity. She's still wearing the safe pink, the I don't want any trouble pink. You nod to her politely. She lowers her eyes, and you smile, only slightly, just enough to show that yes, your lips are red, and yes, you know what that means, and no, you're not sorry. You take your seat in the Eastern Pavilion. Pour tea with one hand. Hold the fan just under your nose. Speak softly. Laugh gently. All while wearing a color that could change your life. Or end it. You raise your arms above your head, and two maids immediately step forward, each holding a different pair of bronze tweezers like surgical tools. This is the part you dread. There's no powder, no rouge, no fragrant mist or poetic fan fluttering. Just pain, plain and simple. Because tonight is full-body grooming, which means plucking. Everywhere. Yes, everywhere. You stare ahead, jaw set, as they begin with the familiar, your forearms. They pull each hair from the root, one by one, wiping the skin clean with rosewater-soaked cloths as they go. It stings. You don't flinch. You've trained yourself to breathe through it, because in ancient China, body hair wasn't just unfashionable, it was unthinkable. A smooth body meant refinement, cleanliness, virtue. It proved that you weren't some wild village girl running barefoot through fields. You were sculpted, polished, civilized. And you've been deferred like a sacred statue. Your arms, legs, stomach, even the fine down along your spine, All of it gone, by force, not by choice. You remember asking once, quietly, if any of the great beauties of the past ever kept their hair. Your handmaid looked at you like you'd asked whether empresses burped in public. Fun fact: ancient Chinese medical texts sometimes described excess hair as a sign of imbalanced qi or excessive heat in the liver. Cosmetic manuals warned that visible body hair disturbed the harmony of the skin, so women plucked, or scraped, or applied pastes of lime and ash to burn the follicles. You tried that once. It worked. It also left a rash so bad your inner robe stuck to your thighs for 2 days. So, now, you stick to tweezers. Slow. Brutal. Safe. Historians still argue whether these hair removal rituals were common across all classes or confined mostly to palace life and courtesan culture. What's certain is that in the circles you move through, beauty is baldness. After the arms and legs, they move to your neck, then your shoulders, then, after a moment's pause, your underarms. That part always draws blood. You taste copper in your mouth and say nothing. The maids speak in gentle voices, as if discussing weather. New rouge color from the Eastern market. Lady Wen fainted again during meditation. Lotus seeds are in season. None of it means anything to you right now. You are suspended in a state of quiet endurance. One tiny sting at a time. They hand you a padded silk ball to grip when they begin plucking around the bikini line, though that term doesn't exist yet. Here, it's simply the lower place. You've learned to dissociate, to drift. You think of your mother, once stern and composed, who plucked her brows while you played with pebbles in the courtyard. You never imagined the rest of her body endured this too. No one tells little girls that beauty costs everywhere. Eventually, you're done. You're rubbed down with cooled peach oil. Your skin gleams like polished jade. You look unnatural, sculpted, blank, a porcelain figurine with no texture. You know there are women who resist, who let the hair grow back and wear longer sleeves, who speak of natural beauty with a kind of defiant glow. None of them last long in the palace. You once overheard a noblewoman say, "If I see a shadow on her upper lip, I see rebellion." She meant it as a joke, but you remembered, because your upper lip, that gets plucked too. There's a strange power in being this smooth, this prepared, like a blade sharpened so finely it looks like a harmless pin. You think of yourself as that blade, and yet, when the maids leave and you're alone, you feel a quiet sadness. You run your fingers over your arm, now slick and hairless, and wonder, what did I lose today that no one will ever see? Tomorrow, someone will compliment your glow, say you look soft, say your skin is quiet. They'll mean it as a compliment. You'll smile, just enough to keep them from asking what else you gave up. You sit very still on the lacquered stool, chin tilted slightly, as the eunuch inspector leans in, not close enough to touch you, but close enough to notice everything. His eyes move methodically, the way a merchant checks porcelain for hairline cracks. Left cheek, right cheek, jawline, hairline, brows. Then the worst part, he tilts a polished mirror to catch the side of your nose in the light. You want to flinch, but you don't, because this isn't a moment of vanity. This is a beauty inspection. And he isn't just some servant. He's part of the court's grooming registry, a team of eunuchs trained to monitor the physical appearance of women in the imperial harem, not just for hygiene, for presentation, for political harmony. A pimple in the wrong place could send the wrong message. A chipped nail, a social demotion, a visible rash, disqualification from events. You passed today? Barely. He makes a notation on a bamboo slip and murmurs something about dryness near your temples. He suggests ginseng steam before the next poetry banquet. Then he leaves. Quietly, efficiently, you breathe again. It sounds absurd, doesn't it? That someone would audit your face like a tax ledger, but here, beauty is bureaucratic. The larger the palace, the more structured its aesthetic enforcement. Each woman is assigned a stylist eunuch, part valet, part watchdog. They keep records, file reports, recommend creams, occasionally report anomalies to higher-ups if something seems off. You know, a woman once demoted for frequent eye twitching, another for thinning temple hair. Their faults? Not crimes, just inconveniences. Your own eunuch, Little Wren, is loyal. Mostly, he once shielded you from criticism by applying powder to a patch of irritation himself. Another time, he let your eye puffiness pass as emotional depth. You rewarded him with a silk scarf. Still, you never fully relax around him. Because palace beauty isn't just curated, it's policed. Fun fact, in certain dynasties, especially the Ming, the inner court kept meticulous records of a woman's appearance, not just height and weight, but daily skin conditions, signs of fatigue, hair texture, breath scent, and posture. These were noted in rotating ledgers. To be beautiful wasn't enough. You had to be consistently beautiful. Historians still debate whether these beauty records were enforced across the entire harem or limited to higher-ranking women. But enough surviving scrolls exist to confirm this. Cosmetic discipline was real, which is why you've come to treat your face like a job. You rise before sunrise to depuff your eyes with jade stones chilled in spring water. You practice neutral expressions in the mirror to prevent fine lines. You train your posture so that your neck looks longer, more swan-like, even when you sit for hours. Your stylist eunuch notices all of it, records all of it. And the strangest part? You begin to crave his approval. A nod from him means your serum worked. A blank glance means you need to adjust your blush. A raised brow might mean nothing or everything. You remember once, at a lantern festival, a fellow concubine fainted from heat stroke. When her robe slipped, a healed burn scar was exposed near her shoulder blade. It wasn't grotesque, barely visible, but afterward, her name disappeared from the evening scrolls. She wasn't summoned again for months. The official reason? Unbalanced visual harmony. You never saw her again. So yes, you let the eunuchs inspect your teeth, your hands, your posture. You let them critique the curve of your smile, the tightness of your bun, the moisture on your lips. You thank them when they correct you. You learn, because they aren't just enforcing beauty, they're gatekeepers of visibility. And in a world where being seen is the only protection you have, you'll take every note, every gaze, every silent evaluation. You'll turn your face toward judgment like a flower to the sun, even if it burns. Tonight, before bed, Little Wren leaves a note on your dressing table. Lip tint slightly uneven on right side. Reconsider application tool. That's all. Just a suggestion. But it stays with you. You spend 20 minutes rechecking your routine. trying 3 different brushes, even considering going without rouge for a day, just to appear natural and win back favor. Because in this palace, beauty isn't about how you see yourself. It's about how you're written down. You lower your eyes as the old fortune teller's fingers gently trace the bridge of your nose. She doesn't ask your name. She doesn't need to. Your face is already telling her everything. This is face reading, or mian xiang, an ancient art that says your destiny is written in your cheekbones, your eyelids, the slant of your eyebrows. You sit still, spine straight, while she murmurs the verdicts of your anatomy. Your nose, she says, is slightly curved at the tip. That means loyalty, but also poor financial luck. Great. She touches your chin. Too soft. You'll be overruled often, but your ears, high and close to the head. That's good. You learn from mistakes. You resist the urge to argue, because here, your face isn't just about beauty. It's about fate. In the court, face reading isn't some fringe practice. It's a quiet obsession. Matchmakers use it. Dowager consorts rely on it. Even the emperor, though he would never admit it, sometimes asks for a second opinion after a new concubine is chosen. And you've had your face read at least 8 times. Each one gave you a slightly different story. But they all agree on this. Your features hold power, and potential, and a few complications. That's why you've been subtly editing your face for years. A little rouge to lift the energy of your cheeks, slightly arched brows to convey decisiveness, a shadow near the nose bridge to lengthen it, enhance your career luck. You even sleep a certain way to avoid shifting your eye shape in dreams. Ridiculous? Maybe. But when you live in a palace where your face is your resume, you learn to work with the script you were given. Fun fact, some ancient Chinese medical and spiritual texts describe the face as a map of the internal organs, the elements, and moral character. The forehead governs career, the cheeks, personal virtue, the mouth, that's your emotional gait. Crooked lips, dishonest heart. Historians still argue whether court officials made serious decisions based on face reading or whether it was just background superstition, but the practice appears in enough records to be taken seriously, and more importantly, everyone believes it works, including you. You've memorized your weak points: slightly low eyebrows, perceived submissiveness, downturned eye corners, tragic destiny, short philtrum, the groove between your nose and lips, bad with money. You've adjusted what you can. The rest, you mask with expressions, a raised chin here, a calm smile there. You never frown, never squint. You're molding your face like a calligrapher crafts a character. Elegant, fluid, intentional. It's not just the women who are read, either. You once caught a senior courtier being examined in secret. He emerged from a side chamber looking pale, muttering something about unbalanced jaw lines. The next month, he was reassigned to a remote post. Coincidence? Maybe. But no one laughed. You visit your regular face reader once a season. She always starts with the same words. Let me look at your story. Then her fingers move like ink brushes, painting invisible judgments across your skin. Today, she pauses at your temples. You've had stress? You nod. She doesn't ask why. She simply applies a tiny patch of fragrant balm, cinnamon, chrysanthemum, something bitter. This will adjust your mood lines, she says. You wonder how many women have had their mood lines adjusted, How many walked out with new fates traced in scent and powder? There's a girl you know, a junior servant, who once shaved off her eyebrows completely, hoping her destiny of poverty would vanish with them. It didn't. But she did get reassigned to the Empress's kitchen. Maybe that's something. Tonight, you study your face in the bronze mirror before bed. You trace the line of your nose. Smile softly. Tilt your chin to catch the candlelight. You whisper to your reflection, strong forehead, noble cheeks, eyes of balance, chin of resolve. You say it like a prayer, because in a world where everyone is reading your face, you've decided to write your own. You grip the edge of the vanity as the heat begins to rise under your skin. It starts as a tingle, barely noticeable. Then the burn kicks in, a creeping warmth along your jaw, your cheeks, your temples. Your skin turns pink, then red, then flush like a summer plum. Your maid looks pleased. That's the point. Tonight, you've applied a special chili oil serum mixed from crushed Sichuan peppercorns, powdered cinnamon bark, and the essence of fermented beans soaked in wine. It stinks. It stings. It works. At least, it's supposed to. Because in this dynasty, redness is youth. Forget what the scholars say about calm, pale beauty. When fashion shifts, so do ideals. Right now, the court is obsessed with the glow, that just awakened flush, that dewy-faced warmth that makes you look like you've been laughing, or maybe crying, or possibly composing tragic poetry beneath a willow tree. And how do you achieve that look? Inflammation? This week's trend is sunset cheeks, inspired by a visiting concubine from the southern provinces who appears permanently radiant. Rumor has it she dabs fresh ginger oil beneath her eyes before public events. You tried it. It made you sneeze for a full hour. Today's attempt is more extreme. Your stylist eunuch heard whispers of a rare salve made from crushed hornet venom, diluted with mulberry sap. Just a trace of sting. Not dangerous. Probably. It stimulates blood flow. Gives the illusion of youth. It also left Lady Jen with a rash so severe she missed her lute recital. You, of course, will be more careful. Fun fact, Chinese herbal texts from as early as the Han Dynasty describe topical irritants used cosmetically, not to soothe the skin, but to provoke it. Bee venom, pepper oil, even mustard seed pastes. The goal was to summon youth, or in modern terms, force a flush. Historians still argue whether these concoctions were effective or just self-inflicted torture. Some believe they served symbolic functions, inducing temporary pain to mirror inner passion. Others argue it was simply a shortcut to looking lively after a long night without sleep. You couldn't care less about the scholarly debate. You just need to look awake. And if that means rolling chili oil under your cheekbones at dawn, you'll do it. You've done worse. The pain has peaked now. Your face radiates heat. Your pores prickle. Your vision swims slightly. You fan yourself gently with a silk paddle to keep from sweating. Sweat ruins the effect. Your handmaid carefully dusts over the redness with a translucent rice powder mixed with finely ground crushed coral. It's iridescent. Just barely. Your cheeks now glow with a mix of fury and control. Perfect. And if you're wondering whether you've poisoned yourself, the answer is probably only a little. But isn't that always the way with beauty? You once heard of a courtesan who let herself be stung by bees before every major poetry recital. Her lips swelled, her skin flushed, her fans swooned. She died of an allergic reaction at 29. They still recite her verses. You're not ready to die for Rouge, but you'll flirt with the edge. You've also experimented with vinegar vapor baths, meant to flush toxins and force a bright complexion. And a few days ago, you pressed a warm coin against your cheek in hopes of creating a faux birthmark. Something alluring. Something poetic. It worked for a day. Then blistered. No one noticed. Tonight, you're expected at a moon-gazing banquet. Your robe is pale blue. Your hair is in a tight coil, pinned with mother of pearl. Your cheeks must carry the whole look. As you walk to the garden pavilion, your skin still radiates heat. Someone passes you. An official, a scholar, maybe, and does a double take. Your face is glowing. You don't smile. You let the flush speak for you, and it speaks clearly. I am alive. I am desirable. I burn with youth and mystery, even if, deep down, you're slightly numb and afraid to sneeze. Back in your chambers, long after the banquet ends, you lie on your back and press a chilled jade roller to your cheeks. The heat finally recedes. You feel drained, but when you glance at your reflection, you're still pink, and that's all that matters. You whisper to your mirror, "Still got it." Then you set the chili oil aside for tomorrow, because you've found your glow, and you're not giving it up. You lean forward, peering into the bronze mirror, and draw the final stroke of eyeliner, not for flirtation, not for vanity, for protection, because here in the palace, your makeup is your armor. The thin black line along your upper lash isn't just there to frame your eyes. It's calculated, sharp, deliberate, almost like a blade drawn in silence. It says, "This woman sees everything." It says, "This woman cannot be underestimated. You're not alone in this strategy. Cosmetics at court are not simply for beauty. They are weapons of political survival. A perfectly placed flush might soften a rival. A pale cheek might inspire sympathy from the emperor. A touch of shimmer at the temples might draw attention away from the conversation and toward your carefully curated expression of innocence. Everything you wear on your face is a choice, and every choice is loaded. You still remember the day you realized it. It was at a poetry recital. A senior consort had chosen the bare face look, subtle powders, natural tones, soft lips. Everyone praised her restraint, until a younger rival arrived, cheeks blazing with plum rouge and eyebrows arched like phoenix wings. People gasped. The emperor smiled. The senior consort? She never recovered her footing. That was when you understood. Modesty is a trap, if it's not wielded as deliberately as boldness. Since then, you've worn your face like a general wears armor. With precision, with strategy, with intent. Fun fact, in the Tang Dynasty, imperial women often used makeup to signal their political affiliations. Certain lip shapes or forehead decorations were favored by specific cliques. Even the direction of your blush could mean, "I stand with her," or "I'm neutral." Makeup was code. Historians still argue whether these aesthetic choices were overt forms of rebellion or subtle cues of alliance. But among the women who lived it, the message was clear. Your face could start or stop a whisper war. And so today, before a particularly dangerous gathering of court ladies, you opt for the silent snow look, white powdered cheeks, blood-colored lips, and a thin, vertical stripe down the center of your brow. It's subtle, but it says, "Don't mistake stillness for weakness." The stripe is risky. It was once worn by a favorite consort who defied the empress during a calligraphy contest. She lost the contest, but the emperor remembered her face for months afterward. You're not trying to defy the Empress. Just be noticed. Gently. The danger is real. There are no weapons allowed in the inner palace. No knives, no swords, no arrows. But there are brushes, and with them, you can paint a story of obedience, or insubordination, or heartbreak, or icy resolve. And the court reads your face like a poem written in rouge. Today's story, you are not to be underestimated. The Empress herself enters last. Her makeup is flawless, red lips that taper like a calligraphy stroke, cheeks sculpted with crushed pearl, brows so still they seem painted onto porcelain. Her eyes glance over you. Your pulse tightens. You lower your gaze just enough to show respect, but not submission. She notes the brow stripe. You see it, the smallest tilt of her head. She's read the message. This is the gamble, because in this palace, no woman ascends without strategy, and no strategy survives without elegance. You remain composed through the ceremony. You pour tea without spilling. You compliment a rival's robe without a hint of sarcasm. You accept compliments with modest nods. And you never, ever let your blush fade, even when the room grows hot with tension. Later, your eunuch stylist approaches. He adjusts your hairpin, then leans in. You were seen today, he murmurs, carefully. That means you walked the edge and didn't fall. Tonight, as you remove your makeup, you watch it dissolve in the basin like war paint melting into silence. The rouge, the powder, the coated stripe, gone, but the impression remains. You are bare-faced again, but not unarmed, because tomorrow you'll choose a new look and tell a new story without saying a word. You've heard the rumor again, whispered behind fans and fanned out like incense smoke through the palace halls. A girl was selected, not because she could read, not because her embroidery was the best, but because her cheekbones made a fortune-teller gasp. She was told she had a face of luck, a jawline destined to bring victory, a forehead promising heirs, and a smile that could raise crops. And just like that, she was traded, not married, not courted, just selected. You've seen it before. Too many times. Because in this court, beauty isn't just admired, it's a commodity, one that can be bought, sold, leveraged, or sacrificed. You remember your own arrival? How a distant uncle praised your auspicious eyes and offered to sponsor your education, so long as you agreed to go wherever your looks might take you. That place was here, and what a lovely gilded cage it is. The price of beauty. You pay it daily, in expectations, in comparisons, in constant evaluation. You've been measured not just by your manners, your music, your posture, but by how well your face fits a dynasty's narrative. And if it doesn't, someone else will. There's a woman who used to sit beside you at embroidery sessions, not the most graceful speaker, not well connected, but her skin, impeccable, her face, balanced like an ink painting. She was discovered one evening during a lantern festival. By the next moon, she was summoned by the emperor, and you never saw her again. Fun fact, in many periods of Chinese history, including the Tang and Qing dynasties, beauty was not just subjective, it was formalized. Women were assessed using specific beauty charts, proportions of the nose, spacing of the eyes, length of the earlobes, even the softness of their hands. In some bride selection ceremonies, girls were ranked before officials like livestock at auction. A flawless face could elevate your whole family. A single scar could close every door. Historians still argue whether the palace operated like a true market for beauty or if these stories are exaggerated, but anyone who's lived inside these walls knows it's real. The economy of faces, the currency of cheekbones, the brutal stock exchange of eyelashes and skin tone and chin shape, you, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on the day, fall somewhere in the middle, just enough to attract attention, not enough to command it. It's a dangerous place to be. Too beautiful, and you're a threat. Not beautiful enough, and you're invisible. But somewhere in the middle, everyone watches. Everyone waits to see if you'll rise or fall. You've been given hairpins worth more than your dowry just to sit near certain officials. You've been denied plum wine for 2 weeks because your nose looked too swollen after a night of crying. You've had poems written about your smile. You've had rumors started about it too. And through it all, your body remains the bargaining chip. At one gathering, a nobleman admired your laugh and whispered to a friend, "Her value just went up." You weren't even supposed to hear it, but you did, and you didn't laugh again for weeks. You've seen girls gifted to distant generals based on looks alone, others sent to negotiate truces between rival houses, armed with nothing but powdered cheeks and a practiced gaze. The worst part? They all looked honored, as if being chosen meant they'd won something. But you know better. Being chosen just means you're useful. For now. The girl with the lucky cheekbones? She didn't return from her wedding procession. The rain fell heavy that day. Her dowry boxes sank into the mud before the palanquin even left the gates. No one mentions her name anymore, but you remember her face. You remember all their faces, because beauty may fade, but here, its ghosts linger. Tonight, as you brush your hair in the dim candlelight, you trace your jaw with the back of your fingers. You wonder what your face says to the world, not in makeup, not in mirrors, but to those who weigh women like coins. You think of yourself not as a flower, not a gem, not even a vessel, but as a currency, one being spent, slowly. You tuck a stray strand behind your ear and whisper to no one in particular, "I hope I'm worth it." You hear it in the corridors sometimes, faint, half-laughed, half-whispered. She was too beautiful for her own good. A caution, a curse, a prophecy, because in this palace, beauty is not a gift, it's a liability, and too much of it? That's dangerous, you learned to stay just under the threshold, glowing, but not blinding, radiant, but not untouchable. You've watched what happens to those who cross the line, the women who were once called divine, unreal, ghostly. Where are they now? Some were married off to distant warlords as peace offerings, their faces hidden behind veils to protect them from being seen, or from being desired by the wrong person. Others vanished entirely. One girl, famed for her flawless skin and dream fox eyes, was said to have died of illness. But her closest maid told a different story, that the Empress simply grew tired of her name being mentioned too often. Another, known for her crane's neck and peach blossom voice, was last seen on the bridge near the lotus pond, smiling. She never returned. You walk the same halls they did, sleep in the same scented chambers, wear the same rouge, the same phoenix pins. And sometimes in quiet moments like, you wonder if you've become one of them. Not one of the lucky. One of the watchful. one of the survivors. Because in a world that consumes beauty, the only women who last are those who learn to wield it carefully. Fun fact: Chinese folklore is full of stories about women whose beauty brought dynasties to ruin, like Daji, the fox spirit consort of King Zhou, or Yang Guifei, whose presence was blamed for rebellion. These stories often end in betrayal, exile, death, yet they remain immortal in poetry, painting, song. Historians still argue whether these women were scapegoats for bigger political failures, or whether their power really was their beauty. What no one argues is the price they paid for it. And you're learning the cost too. You no longer chase the most brilliant pigments. You let others draw attention. You've perfected the art of being just beautiful enough. You fade a little in summer, brighten in winter, always shifting, always adapting. You walk through the garden at twilight, sleeves trailing, eyes lowered, not out of modesty, but calculation. Someone calls your name. You turn, just enough to catch the light across your cheekbone. They blink. They smile. They remember you. Just a little. And that's all you need. Tonight, you wipe away your makeup carefully, slowly, lovingly, not because you hate it, but because it's not you. Not really. Just a costume you wear to stay safe. Your bare face stares back in the mirror. It's not flawless, but it's still here, still watching, still surviving. And somewhere behind the powder and the polish and the silence, you wonder what your life might have looked like if you'd been born plain, or ugly, or invisible. Would you have been freer? Would you still be here? Or would the world have found another way to use you? You lie down on your silk pillow, loosen your hair, and whisper the names of the ones who disappeared, not out loud, just with your heart. You know their stories, because their stories are warnings, and you plan to outlive them all. And now, the lights in the palace dim, the incense burns low. Outside your chamber, the garden is silent. Even the moon seems to pause for breath. You lie still in your bed, your limbs heavy beneath layers of silk, your breath slow and even. The night air cools the powder from your cheeks. The rouge has been wiped clean, the pins removed, the cage undone. All that remains is you, not the beauty, not the strategy, not the ritual or the disguise, just you. And yet, aren't you beautiful still? Maybe not in the way they taught you, not in the way that earns a eunuch's nod or a concubine's glare, but in the way a woman is beautiful when she has seen the game, played the game, and stayed standing. You've survived the powders, the paints, the pills, the politics. You've learned that beauty isn't always something you choose. Sometimes it chooses you and doesn't let go. But tonight, in this quiet hour, you let go of it. You exhale the weight of every gaze. You inhale something soft and simple, your own breath, steady and warm. The palace fades, the rules dissolve, and you, tucked beneath a sky stitched with stars, are no longer a concubine, or a canvas, or a ghost in rouge. You are just a woman, still, whole, and finally, free to rest. Sleep well, beautiful one. You've earned it. End of script. Sweet dreams.